I'd like to tell you a little tiny bit about me before we get started. And you know a little bit about me and NLP. I think the most important transformations in my life, one occurred at 3 or 4, I can't really remember. I'm from New England, born in New Hampshire, and in Maine, I had this dream. I was at my auntie's house, and it was a dream in which all the heroes and heroines of the world died. And to me, that meant there was no one to help us, no one to inspire us. And I was devastated. I cried and cried, and my auntie said, Linny, I was called Linny, Linny, what's the matter? But I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want her to know and live in fear. So I kept it to myself, but it really focused me on, I really need to learn how humans are humans. And what happened? What happened that made us so afraid or so hurt or wanting to hurt and suffer? That was a real curiosity to me. And I had a lot of material in my life that verified that. As far as we lived in a place where we were haunted by not feeling good enough, not feeling complete or lovable, or lots of other things. So that kind of started my journey, and everything I did had to do with learning about communication, learning about how people were people. And when I was with Virginia Satir, I took another transformation. I remember I was sitting like you are, and I never saw her before. She's kind of a tall, powerful presence. She came in the room and she went like this, and then she looked at me and she said, you should know before you know. And that's what my mother always would say to me. So she had me right there. And I grew so much in her presence that I felt a sense of hope. And then I thought if we could only find out how to make our heroes again. And I wanted to learn. It was like, I don't know if you saw the movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth. He got all these television sets and just kept putting input. That's how I felt like when I saw that movie. I said, that was me. So anyway, I went to anyone I could go to, any therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, to learn more and more and more. And it lasted 4 days each time. The first day they talked about me and I talked about me. The second day we talked about them and I talked about them. The third day they said I was all right, I didn't need any help and go away. And they couldn't charge me for helping them. So I just said, see, I'm fooling you. You've got to know I really need help. And they went, I even went through so many in Connecticut. I went to Boston because I thought, well, there's a bigger city, they'll be more sophisticated, they'll be able to help me. Got the same thing. So along came NLP. And it was such a breath of fresh air because it gave me more of my coding system. It was like I already knew it, but I didn't have it formulated linguistically. And I was very, very inspired, except for this one thing, when they would say, we don't go there. 2 things happened when they said that. I knew there was a there, and I knew I couldn't get them to help me go there. So after the first year of DOTAR, the second year, everyone went their separate ways, and I went with Leslie, and we formed the NLP Center Advanced Studies. And then I bought that and turned it into a corporation. For several years, I had like 8 trainers, but my mind kept going, where's there, where's there? And Leslie and I were going to give a seminar called the Elegance Principle. And it wasn't like elegance of movement and dress, it was more like elegance of how you function as a human. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can sit here if you'd like. Okay. I hope I have a good profile then. And so I said, this time, Leslie, I want to go beyond the maps, because they were still pretty, well, the imprints are real. We are imprinted. And I want to go beyond the territory. I want to go to there. And she said, Lynn, you absolutely will never be able to go there. And I said, how do you know? And she said, because I don't go there. I got so depressed that the human potential would end there, that I sold my business and I went on, well, I don't know, I moved to Mount Shasta, and I thought I went there to maybe recuperate. Later years, I found out I actually went there to die because I felt so worn out, so weary, and back to that dream. And that door closed, but the next door opened. I stepped into that world, and I've been into that world, which is the world of going and getting there. It isn't like a light switch. You're there, you're not there. But in that world, I learned so much more wisdom that had not been revealed. It had been revealed in Patanjali's. Patanjali's was the birthplace of NLP in 700. And what I'm going to present to you today is the wisdom that I found out about being human, and how knowing this can allow you to start to identify yourself in the truth of who you are. Now, we all know you're a body, your mind, and your emotions. Well, those are three separate entities. If the body was left alone, without the mind and judgments, without the emotions and all the difficult ones, all it wants is pleasure. The pleasure to live, to move, to eat, to dance, to sing, to make love. It wants pleasure.
Sounds great.
That was our natural birthright. Now, the mind, if it was left alone from the difficult emotions and the problems in the body due to the difficult emotions from the mind, all the mind wants to do is change. Change, 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 change. It loves it. And a lot of therapies, they get a big aha, now I know why I'm like this. My mother looked at another man and my father dropped dead and blah, blah, blah. I've got the answer. The mind has a full meal and it's satisfied, but next morning it's breakfast time. And so the mind goes, well, maybe it was that man who purposely dropped dead. The mind just keeps being curious. And then we have the emotions. The intent was, if the emotions didn't have the world of judgment, they would only live in 4 states: happiness, joy, peace, and compassion. We can also add patience and tolerance and forgiveness, but they're like relatives under happiness, joy, peace, and compassion. So that's the way it was supposed to be. We were spirit coming here to experience a body that Mother Nature provided and live in this material world and experience it. But along came a big stick called judgment. And when judgment happened, the states of consciousness that exist in us and are alive and well, but they're hidden now in our conditioning, started to close down. The state of consciousness of our own truth, our own wisdom, not the wisdom put into me. What happened is, in the love of ourselves, we started to shut down our own love, our own wisdom, our own allowance, our own pleasure, our own change for change's sake and the excitement of it, and our own happiness, joy, peace, and compassion. So we're shutting down, yet we have to live in this world. It's kind of made up of judgment. And this is another real important thing that no one talks about yet, really exists non-verbally in this world, and that is, I can give you love, and I can take it away. When you live in that kind of cause-effect world, you get kind of messed up. And so you jump outside. What can I do to keep that love? What can I do to be worthwhile? What can I do to be successful? and she gets left behind. My exploration, your exploration of you and who you are gets very, very quiet. However, like I said, as you were shutting down, somebody had to go in that foreign territory. And we created a representative. Just like your representative in your government represents you, but does it really represent you? And that little representation is called an ego. An ego. So the ego developed a personality or a coherency out of this land that was built on the objective consciousness mind. And even the science say, and in the dictionary it says, the objective consciousness mind is not your mind. Is not your mind. It's pretty darn interesting to me. And we're living in that, not your mind. Now, sense the emotions that are real, and by that I mean the ones that support life, happiness, joy, peace, and compassion, since they're real, the ego, which is like a paper tiger, it isn't real, had to have unreal emotions. And by unreal emotions, I mean emotions that don't support life. Not that you don't feel these, you probably feel them a lot or a little. And those emotions were fear, doubt, and lack. And the thing about the ego is it knows that if you find out who you are, or it thinks, you won't need it. So its job is to keep you in control. Whenever you get too close to that happiness, joy, peace, and compassion, something will happen. The ego wants you to stay the same. The ego wants you to go back to the known. The ego is the no. Do you know a child by the age of 5 hears the word no 80,000 times? 80,000 times. And they've tested in laboratories, when you say no to a cell, it contracts and starts to putrefy. And when you say yes, it blossoms and thrives. Well, that's what we are. We're all those little blossoms, little happy cells all over the place. So we went through our conditioning. We've stepped into this reality, and we're all in it together. That's the wonderful part. And sometime in your life, there will be, it may not be stated this way, but there's a feeling of there's got to be more than this. There's got to be something more. To me, I called it the there. Even if you're successful in many ways, like Robert was saying, a lot of people who are successful are still empty. So when that yearning and that desire calls to you, you start your path to you, back home. And that happiness, joy, peace, and compassion, pleasure-oriented, and a clear, happy, changed mind is waiting for you. The first breath you took, you were whole, complete, pure. You were being. In your growing up, the minute that you understood cause-effect, that when I drop that pen, and Mommy makes that face, when I put that together, and I realize, uh-oh, I've really cemented myself into that reality. And an interesting things happens to the body. A baby, if you look at them, they breathe in the belly. It's called the water breath, where birth happens, for most of the women anyway. But you also have the element of that in you. And their pelvis moves slightly, you know, not like this, but slightly. When you cognize cause-effect, the breathing goes up to here, and it stops going down to the belly. And instead of becoming a being, just being, you become a thinking being. Do I deserve to live? Am I good enough? Does my mommy love me? Can I get that chocolate bar? Everything becomes focused externally. And again, with this, I can give you love, but I can take it away, which is a total distortion of love. Love is like everything, and it allows everything. It's like the ocean. Anyone can swim in the ocean. Love accepts everything, the highest form of it and the densest form of it, the very densest form of it. It's not the opposite of hate. Love just is. But we are in the illusion that we can lose it. It can be taken away from us. And this causes a lot of challenges too. So Robert talks about bringing the breath back down here. Well, when you do that, you start to awaken that you, that real you, because the little infant you were is still alive and well. The pure, innocent, whole, and complete being is there waiting for you. So you don't have to put anything in you. Becoming more and more of who you really are is a memory game. It's allowing yourself everything, allowing yourself for it to be true, allowing yourself and accepting everything. Now, getting to the ego, let me say that over here is the ego, and we develop our little personality around here. And it's kind of like, here's you going through conditioning, and you have your little coherency built on lots of judgments. And there's not that there's not good things in there too, but the good things we can make better, but they're not really a problem. I'm talking about the areas that catch us, that knock us to our feet, that make us go to sleep at night and not feel great or not feel good, or wake up in the morning and wish it wasn't morning. Those times. And maybe I'm the only one that has them, but I doubt it. Anyway, the world of judgment is competitive, comparative. I'm not a good speller. If somebody else would like to come and write this while I'm saying it. It's rational, logical, and highly reactive. This is kind of the ego personality coherency that we formed out of what was ever in our environment for us to know how to live here. How can I go out into the world and exist? And who am I out there? Over here, I'm going to put the word truth. Over here is who you really are. And some of those things you know already. Some of those things that you love about you. Can you tell me one thing one of you love about you? Or respect, at least.
My curiosity.
Your curiosity. Some more. Creativity.
My head of hair.
Your head of hair.
His sense of humor.
His sense of humor.
Love of fun.
The love of fun. See, we all have these positive attributes. If we could just do something really simple. Most of us identify with who we are over here, the known conditioned reality. But who we really are, who we're becoming, discovering, uncovering, is more over here. So if you could take your identity from here and place it here, when you make that transformation, another whole door of you opens. And what happens, all of these have beliefs and patterns that limit you. The only way to take back control of your ego, because we need it here in this land, in this dimension, or whatever we want to call it, we need our ego. But it doesn't have to be the tail wagging the dog. So we've got to make the ego our servant instead of our master. And let's say you have a behavior that whenever you're with a certain kind of man, you feel insecure. Well, right away I would go, that doesn't fit over here. That fits here from whatever happened to you. And so that isn't me. That's a behavior I learned. It was taught to me. It was never me. And I'm going to let it be all right that that's part of my conditioning, but I'm not going to identify that it's me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it's really important. Because who I am is over here. Now we have a few clues. You know, I was talking about happiness, joy, peace, and compassion. This is where you really live. And we have another clue that's called pleasure. And the mind that likes to change. But change without expectation. Expectation is over here. I want you to love me. Well, I don't want you to love me that way. I want you to accept me, but I don't want you to do that in the morning or this in the morning. That's all not who I am. And what I say is, thank God it isn't me. Thank God it isn't me. And sometimes I can confine myself in the behavior, and right away I can recognize it and go, oh, you live over here. Of course you would do that. Of course you would do that. And it's all right. I accept that because it's there, but I don't identify. The minute you allow and accept this ego, you're in charge because it has no juice, no power, no gasoline. It's just like if your hand is on the ego and I'm fighting my ego, it's just exercising you and getting stronger and stronger. The minute it pushes, it can't get you any longer. That's how you master the ego, by simply allowing it and accepting it. It's your ego. Nobody wants it. You're responsible for it, but it isn't who you are. It's kind of the luggage that you got when you went through conditioning. I think of when we're born, we're like a room of pure light. On that first breath. The second breath, conditioning happens, and furniture moves in. The furniture of you should do that, you can't do that, you mustn't do that, you'll never be able to sing, oh my God, what an artist you won't be, blah, 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 blah. And pretty soon the room is so filled with furniture, you forget you're the room of light, and you become the furniture because of repetition, because of demands, because of, I can take that love away. And we've got to remember we're the room of light. And as you keep going over to uncovering the truth of you, that spirit you are just waits for an opportunity to get through. And like the things that you said that you loved about yourself, these are little shots that got through. And they can grow and grow and grow, but not if you won't allow all these things over here to be, because they are. Just don't identify with them. It's kind of like this pen. I think most of you would allow that I'm holding a pen, because to not allow it would be kind of silly, because indeed you can say I'm holding a pen, and so what? However, when it comes to certain thoughts that you have, you won't allow them. They're already there, but you say, a woman like me shouldn't have that. A man like me shouldn't feel that. But the truth is, you do. However, it's not who you are. It's one of your patterns. You know, a child until the age of 5 cannot interpret life. It can only believe. So whatever is said to it, it believes. Whatever is said to it. And it can have two reactions. It can give in to it, or it can be a rebel to it. But either way, it's not them. One is accepting the external mind, and the other is fighting the external mind, but still there's no one home over here yet. You have your own wisdom and knowledge. You have a place where you're whole and complete and strong and beautiful and precious. And it's waiting for you. And the ticket is to simply move that ID over here. These states of consciousness, of truth, of the vision of the wonder of life and us as life, the part of us that is love, the part of us that is empowered, completely powerful, powerful in life, not controlling life, but in life. The part of us that has certainty and that has absolute joy of being a human. I'm here, men, line up. That kind of passion. And women too. To just love yourself so much that you fall in love with everybody. Someone once said to me, there's nobody out there, Lynn, but you. There's nobody out there, Lynn, but you. And everybody you draw to your kingdom is a you don't know about. Is a part of you you never thought to think or feel or be. And there's a place where they are you. Well, that was pretty lofty for me. But in my work, I realized, because I was also really curious, people would call me nosy. Actually, I like curious better, but I'll take nosy. And there is all of you waiting for you. And it will wait forever. It will never, ever fight the ego. If you're trying to get rid of any of these, that's a trick of the ego. It's the ego trying to entertain you by getting rid of itself. Ha, 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 ha. And it's kind of it's very sophisticated, the ego. It knows you in every cell of your being. It knows what buttons to push as little rings all around that can lead you places. So I admire it. I wish I had the sophistication over here, and I will one day. But right now, I'm up against, and if you have a brilliant mind, you have a brilliant ego. I'm up against a pretty tough character here. And it isn't that it can't get me. Sometimes it really gets me. And I can't say, well, thank God that's not me, and jump over here. Other times I have to crawl out. But I know where to go. I know where to go. And NLP gives you so many ways as well to go. But this is who you really are. And what's around you that's not allowing you to feel that all the time is like, I imagine it to be like a big tire of cement called my conditioning. And it doesn't allow that knowing that I am to come out. And the minute you stop fighting it or judging the judgment, just accept the pen, accept every dark thought, every dark feeling, every dark action you've had, just accept, yep, that was me, I did that. And of course I would from my conditioning. And I learned from it, and what I learned mostly is it isn't really me. Who I am is pure love, the light. I am happiness and joy, peace and compassion. I am pleasure. And I want everyone who's willing to come along with me. And that's what you are. You're all in service. You're in service from the deepest love that you are. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. It's a great short story about a man who wanted wisdom, and he was told there was this great master who lived on this high cliff, and so it took him 10 years to get there. And he said, I want your wisdom. And the man said, there's only love. So the guy went, and he thought he got it. And so he wanted higher wisdom. So he found out the guru moved to a higher mountain. Took him 20 years, lost his arm on the way, really pretty treacherous journey. Was sick a lot, but he finally crawled to his great wisdom master and said, I'm ready for the ultimate truth. And the guru said, all there is love. And he said, are you kidding me? I just spent 20 years and I lost my arm, and you're telling me the same thing you told me 20 years ago? And the master said, truth don't change. The good side of the ego is if you want to go down 60 feet in the water, you better have the gear on. Well, we're 60 feet down in the water, and the ego lets us survive here. And it can serve us, but right now, as I said, it is the tail wagging the dog, only because we won't allow and accept it. Just like, think of this pen. Whenever you go, okay, I could accept a pen, but to accept that about myself, that I did that to her, that I said that to them, yeah, it's a pen, it's a pen. And of course, there's feelings. I'm not saying that it's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and you're on the other side. But the biggest transformation you can make in your life is to just move that identity over here and stop the fight. And when you see the fight, though, I'm fighting again. Now, I have a pattern. It's getting less and less. I'll share with you. And that is when I do something that I think is really top drawer. It's really, really, I'm so glad and so proud I was able to do it. I can know that one of my little octopus's legs is out to get me, called, oh, you think you're so great? And I will create somebody to say something that will just demoralize me. And that's pattern. It's a cutie. It's a cutie. And you know, it happened one day, and it took almost 2 days for it to happen. And when it happened, I tried to make fun with the ego, and I said, holy cow, what took you so long? And I'm still feeling devastated, but I'm using humor, I'm using even smiles. If you think of all happy faces in your cheeks and in your organs, that's a yes to them. They flourish. That breath, that other thing about the breath, when you breathe up here, what happens is the air is still too hot, and it goes to your organs and it starts to putrefy them too quickly. When it goes to what I call the breath of the mother, it cools down, and it's the right temperature for them to enter your body. So the breath is really important. The breath is really a big way to this side. Yes. Now, what tools can I use to get over here? The first tool is to recognize it was learnt. It was put in you like a program. And your parents had the same program put in, and that's been going on for a long, long time. Some people say, now I'm going to use the word Christ, but I'm not using it necessarily for like representing Jesus the Christ. I would never represent him. But the word Christ means a state of self-love. And so we all have that state. So you all have your Christ. And some people say, this is your Christ, and this is your Antichrist. And this is the game you chose to play to remember who you are. And it's a tough game. It's a tough game. I'm sorry, I think she had her hand up first.
I worked for Dr. King in Chicago when he was in Chicago. And when we would be on the marches, I was really scared because people would throw things at us and hurt us. And in the middle of that, he would make us sit down, literally on the ground, and all of us to send love out, to pray and to send love out to all of them. And I was angry, and I was thinking dirty words, and I wanted bad things to happen. And he would just remind us in that space over and over again that we were there to send love and compassion.
He took you over here.
Oh, exactly.
It takes a lot of people to make a trainer. It takes a lot of participants to make a good trainer. And there are times when I'm sitting there, and there are times you'll be up here and I'll be sitting there, because really there is nobody out there but you. And when you fall in love and stop resisting you, you cannot help but love everyone you meet. And you see their ego and you allow it. If they're judging you, it's a pattern, it's an ego. Freedom is this transformation. This is called the 7 breaths, or the breath of compassion. Now, remember I said breathing down here makes the air the perfect temperature, and it makes your body go, I'm considered. I'm being considered. I'm being allowed what will feed and nourish me. So there's a respect that starts. It also is an access for spirit to come in. That conscious breath allows that love of who you are to come in more and more. So as I said, these little coherencies start to open up and open up and open up. And even the ego, after a long time, even the ego starts to relax. But please, there's one thing that people do. Well, let me fix my ego. I wouldn't go there, because that's a setup from the ego. Just allow it and accept it. Learn all your patterns. Learn all your patterns. I give them names, and I draw pictures of them so I can be more dissociated and recognize them instead of having that hook in my mouth so quickly. Yes, people are not their behaviors, but they'll go to war to keep them. And do. And I don't mean just the military war, I mean our war. But because we over-identify with the furniture. We forget we're the room of light. And that we can go, I like that piece, but get that one out of here. I like that piece, but get that one over there. Yeah, the hooks. It's kind of like the yin yang, the dark spot. Every time you have a difficulty over here, the end result is you become a greater light. It's kind of like if you could imagine I'm hiding all my darkness consciously and unconsciously, and I meet you, and you're hiding all your closet door of darkness. And so this is how we have to relate to each other. Yeah. No. It kind of limits and restricts it.
But again, that was very cute. Very cute.
And it's you know, it's really a burden too. But that's really literally what we do. I used to tell people who wanted to hold on to one of these, well, here's your boulder. Keep it until you want it. Just allow it to be all right. And it didn't take long. But let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, the reframing. Reframing is one of my favorite things because you can do everything in it. It's like its own its own world. Every time I use one of these, you know, what's the behavior, and to find the intent, I always land over here. The person always touches a place in them of that pure love, that the part loves them, cares about them, cherishes them, wants to protect them, wants them to be happy. And so I love reframing. It's such a great technique. And forgiveness, the power. These are powers. They're not just, oh, isn't that pretty? She's happy. Isn't that great? That guy has peace. These are real powers. I tell people, you want a challenge in life? Be happy, no matter what. These are powers. And another power is forgiveness. Every time you forgive, you gain back part of your dignity. So, 7 breaths. First, I'll just explain how I want you to breathe, if you will, and then I'll put what you're doing while you're breathing. So you'll be comfortable, more or less have your back fairly straight, but, you know, shoulders relaxed. And I really would like you, even though you have to breathe through your nose, I want you to imagine that the breath is coming into your heart. So you're breathing with your nose, but imagine the breath is coming into your heart, and it's going like right through your spine, down into your lower belly, and then you'll just breathe out again from your nose. Just let the air fall out. But again, imagine it's coming out from your heart. You got that part? And some of you might have a hard time breathing to your belly, so feel free to use your muscles at first to get that breath down there. So now what I'd like you to think of is making some kind of a little container. It can be very utilitarian or very fancy, but a little tiny box or container, and place that gently inside the lower belly. into the area of the water breath. They call it the place of the mother, the water, the ocean. So that's going to be your little box, little magic box. All right, and what I'd like you to do now is to imagine right here between your eyebrows, to look out, put your hand there and your hand on your heart, and then make a pyramid, and this will be the point. Just have your hands go out until they meet. And that's about where I'd like your focus to be at that point, when you're breathing out. All righty? You can relax your hands. And what I'd like you to see in that little point is a golden pyramid, kind of all lit up like it's a liquid. And you're right in the center of it. And just picture the symbol of a Buddha, but the Buddha's you, and you're right there, just kind of hanging out. Okay, so the breath in, you're going to focus on putting something in that little box, and the breath out, you're going to go looking at that pyramid with you, Buddha, inside of it. So that's the technical part. Now, what we use this technique for is anything that disturbs you, that you're displeased with yourself or someone else, you know, a judgment. I'm having difficulty with this person or that person. I don't like that. I don't feel good today. I don't like my bank account. Whatever it is. And what I'd like you to do is to take that thought. I'll use, for an example, I'm really angry at myself. And I want you to allow yourself to feel it. And to keep in mind that that's from your conditioning, and we're recognizing that that's not who I really am, and this technique is to get you back to you. So, in order to do that, you need to not dissociate in this exercise. You have to let yourself, allow yourself to feel the anger. And as you breathe into your heart, the anger goes down and into the box. And when you breathe out, I'd like you to say this and only this using your name. And if it's somebody else that you're working on, use their name and your name. When you breathe out and focus on that little pyramid, you say, I am so happy with you, Lynn. I am so pleased with you, Lynn. And we're going to do the same thing 7 times. It takes 7 breaths for the blood to circulate completely through the body. And we're using certain states of consciousness in this exercise, but for right now, I'll keep it really, really simple. Do you have any questions about the technical part of it? Now, the important thing is that when you feel the anger, you feel the anger. On the way up, on the elevator up, you really feel, I am so pleased with you, Richard. I am so happy with you, Richard. You really allow yourself to feel that to the extent of your experiences, with the passion, all the passion that you can muster. You may have never said this to yourself, by the way. I am so happy with you, Patricia. I'm so pleased with you, Patricia. And you do that 7 times. You let go of that, go back to put it in the box, and exhale to the pyramid. I'm so happy with you, Lynn. I'm so pleased with you, Lynn. Breathe in, put it in the box. And you do that 7 times. Do you understand how to do it? Okay. And at the end, just think of something that makes you happy. Okay? So start on your own, because you'll all have a different intake breath and external breath. But think of something that just is a nuisance or a challenge or a difficulty or makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life. And then start. Have it go through the center of your spine, into the lower belly, into the box, the grump, And then I'm breathing out the exhale. I am so happy with you. I am so pleased with you as the breath comes out of your heart. And if you're finished, just think of something that makes you happy. And for those of you who have finished, if you would go back to that original thought that was uncomfortable, see how it's different or not. See how it's different or not. So, would anyone like to tell me what happened when they checked in to the original discomfort, if it was different or the same?
I think the big shift, letting go of the anger about the behavior, then led to a shifting into loving the connection. One aspect of it was wanting to read everything on the internet about everybody. You know, that was this addiction I had to information.
Uh-huh.
And then seeing that actually that came out of love for all these people, even Donald Trump or whatever it is that I'm fascinated by. And then, wow, you know, I can actually love all those. I don't have to read about everybody, you know. So there's an expansion of the self in a sense.
That's great. That's great. And sometimes you have to do maybe 8 or 9 breaths. But somewhere along the 7 breaths, you start to feel a shift. Like you go down into the box and you might forget exactly what you were putting in there, or it might get gotten confused, or you might be putting, I'm happy with you down there. And that is great because it indicates a shift is happening. Yes, this technique really, really works. It's like the goose that laid the golden egg. It can change anything. And what you're using that I don't have time to tell you, you're using parts of your body that have a consciousness that's been waiting to be used that can help you. And I'm so appreciative that you came to listen to me and that you allowed yourself to let me in. No one can ever do anything greater than to give you themselves in a moment, their attention and their time. And I'm very grateful and I feel very humble. I'm very appreciative. Thank you. Thank you.